Hi there, my name's Bifrost and welcome to another Planet Coaster 2 video. It's only yesterday since I last uploaded a video from this park, but I've done quite a bit of work improving some areas that I wasn't really very happy with. And what I've also done is I've discovered a few tips that I'm going to share about how to place heaters to make sure your guests stay comfortable in cold conditions. So let's have a look at some of the areas I've improved, and as we go through each one, I'll mention what I've done to improve the guest comfort. Now, if you did miss my last video and you're not sure where to find the heaters, because it did take me a little bit of time to find them, I'll show you quickly where they are. If you go into the utilities menu, just here, there's two different kinds. There's a freestanding version and then there's a wall mounted version. So the first thing is a major overhaul just here of the queue for the roller coaster. Now, it was covered in a lot of trees and it wasn't very pleasant to look at. And the problem that I found was that when I placed the heaters, it melted all of the snow, and so it lost its wintry ambience, and I really didn't like that. So what I've done, firstly, I had a look at the heat map. Now, if we just bring that up, if I turn the hood on, and the orange areas show what is warm and what is cold. And I did find that I'd completely overdone the amount of heaters that I'd got. And so I scaled them back so that everywhere stayed warm. And I also realized that the buildings themselves generate heat. Obviously, because it's covered, they provide some kind of shelter, and so I didn't need heaters within the building. So I've removed all of the heaters from inside the buildings, and that's helped snow lie on the roofs. And then what I've also done is in these areas where there's plenty of heat from the heaters, you can't actually see any of them, and so I've sunk them into the ground, and they have a sphere all the way around them, 360 degrees in every single direction, so you can bury them into the ground and they will work in a vertical direction as well. Trees provide a bit of heat, and so does other scenery as well, so it's worth bearing that in mind. So if we go to the guest mood and we just go to the warmth, you can see that everybody in that queue is completely happy, and in fact throughout the entire park all of the guests are warm and happy, even though there are areas that are not heated. If we just have a look at that heat map again, you can see that there are blue areas here that are not heated along the paths, but that doesn't seem to affect the guests' happiness. As long as they are warm while they're standing still, I think that is probably enough to keep them happy. So I've really reduced the amount of heaters, and that has just helped the snow to lie on the paths and on the other ground, just to give it that wintry feel. Looking around this queue, you can see several things that I've done to replace the snow that has been melted by the heaters. So firstly, over here I've got some customizable rocks, so I've just coloured them white with a little bit of grey just to give them a bit of texture, but that's great for covering a lot of area. And looking over here, these are all customizable rocks on the floor just here, just to make the floor white. And then you can see creeping in just here, this is a moss decal that's been coloured white. These white trees are an ironwood bush, but you can colour the foliage white as well, which is very effective. I've got some heather here that I've coloured white. And then I've also used the snow pieces from the Festive pack, just in a limited way. I had used those quite a lot, but they're only really very good for deep drifts. They don't seem to cover the ground quite as well as some of the other pieces. But put together, all of these different techniques really do make for quite a convincing snow effect that replaces the snow that's been melted by the heaters. So the queue to the carousel has had quite a bit of an update. I've used some of the toy pieces just to make it a little bit different. So I've got the blocks as the entrance, Then around the outside of the queue, I've got some more block pieces, and I've used the same technique on the opposite side of the queue just to make it seem very snowy again, where the heaters have melted the snow. So I've got mainly moss decals, but a few custom rocks, and then the crystal pieces from the sorcery pack as well, coloured white, just there to give a bit of ambient light when it's dark. Then I use some of the blocks on the exit just to make a little bit of a centerpiece, and this is really a bus stop just to wave goodbye to the people that have been on the carousel. I did have about 3 heaters in the chalet, which is a shop, but I found when I took the heaters out of the shop, the building provided enough heat without them, and so the snow is now settling on the roof, so I don't need the artificial snow that I'd put on before. Now just over here you can see coming into view a newer entrance, because previously I'd put down a blueprint from Planet Coaster and it really didn't fit. I'd tried to make it fit, but it really needed a custom build. So I found a photograph of the building that I used as a little bit of inspiration, but I've made it very festive. So if we go around the other side, you'll see what the guests see as they approach the park. So there is a very rustic looking building that's been decorated with pieces from the Festive pack. So mostly this was just stucco walls, and then I've made some custom signs to put either side just to name the park and greet the guests as they enter. You'll notice that this plaza on the opposite side of the entrance is free of snow because there is a heater buried underneath the Christmas tree which warms that area there, but I've sunk it low enough so that that heat is not affecting the roof of the entrance. So snow is lying on the top of the roof, even though there is a heater here in the middle of the plaza. If the heater was at ground level, then that would have started to melt some of the snow on top of this roof. So burying it in the ground has been really effective. Then finally, we go over to the Helter Skelter, and the queue has had the same treatment as all of the other queues. So I have mainly used rocks to add the snow back to this area, with a few moss decals here and there, and then the odd bush just dotted about just to make it seem a little bit less stark. Then I've put a Christmas tree just here with a custom sign that I've made just to announce the entrance to the Helter Skelter. Well, that's been a slightly shorter video, but hopefully you found my tips on how to use the heaters useful, and it's worth just playing about with them. Try them at different depths just to get the effects that you want with snow lying, and don't forget, you don't need to overuse the heaters. They have got quite a large radius that they are effective with. Use the heat maps as well of how the temperature is spreading and how the guests are feeling, just to inform you of the best positions for the heaters. If you have enjoyed this video, then you can do me a really big favor by clicking the like, subscribe and the bell notifications. Hope you have a great Christmas. All that's left now though is to say stay safe, and I'll see you soon.